Well, as the 49ers continue through their 2013 offseason, really the biggest domino that will need to fall at this point is quarterback Alex Smith. The 49ers' former number one overall pick was supplanted by Colin Kaepernick as the starting quarterback after Smith suffered a concussion midway through the season. Kaepernick took the job and ran with it, guiding the 49ers to the Super Bowl. And at this point, all signs point to Smith departing the team after this year. Jim Harbaugh and Trent Baalke have both stated that there's no guarantee that he'll be traded. There's a chance they could keep him into next year. And there is obviously a small possibility that could happen. After all, the 49ers are paying the two of them less than $10 million a year combined, which for the quarterback position is a relative bargain in the NFL. But I think there's too much value to be had by trading or releasing Alex Smith. Getting him somewhere else. I think he was a good soldier this year. He's been a great teammate, but at some point, I just don't think it's good for the locker room. So, I guess the next step really becomes when he gets moved, where he gets moved, how he gets moved. Obviously, Alex Smith would like to be released so he could find his way around the league and figure out where he would go. The 49ers want to trade him. At this point, nothing can really. I mean, the 49ers could release him between now and the start of the league year on March 12th, but at this point, all signs point to them just trying to figure out a possible trade for now. Trent Baalke did have dinner with Alex Smith and his wife shortly after the Super Bowl, and they have discussed some of the different options. Obviously, they're not going to tell us exactly what they've discussed, but they're moving in that direction. So right now, if the 49ers were to trade or release Alex Smith, well, if they were to release him before the start of the league year, they would owe him $1 million of his 2013 base salary, and that is it. That would go against the cap. Right now, his 2013 salary is $7.5 million, and he is owed a roster bonus of $1 million on March 12th when the league year starts. That $7.5 million becomes guaranteed on April 1st. However, $1 million of that is already guaranteed no matter what happens. So if the 49ers release him before before March 12th, he would count $1 million against their cap. If they trade him when the league year starts, they would owe him. I believe they would owe him the $1 million roster bonus. They would owe him the $1 million in guaranteed money on their cap, but then they would save the remaining, I believe, $6.5 million. So at this point, there's a lot of money to be saved by dealing him, and with Deshaun Goldson up for a new contract, they're gonna need every penny they can find, and I really think that at this point, Alex Smith is going to be ending up elsewhere for 2013. The question is where and who needs him at this point. I'd say the three leading contenders are probably the Arizona Cardinals, the Kansas City Chiefs, and the New York Jets. They all have quarterback situations that need to be resolved in some context. I think the Jets are probably at the bottom of that group because they owe a ton of money to Mark Sanchez, and they're generally a mess, and I don't think the 49ers would send Alex there. I think they want to try and do right by him, and sending him to the Jets would really not be the wisest course of action. The Bills, the Browns, and the Raiders are three other teams where they could use new quarterbacks, but they're in the midst of kind of questionable situations at this point. As far as what you get with Alex Smith, if you're an opposing fan and you're trying to figure out, well, is Alex Smith the guy for us? You take the good, you've got the good and the bad, as with a lot of quarterbacks, as with a lot of football players. We can kind of look at the positives first. I think a great example of really his brains, which is really one of his strengths, came week 2 against the Detroit Lions this year. As the highlight shows, you see the fullback offset go into motion to the right side, and then at that point we see Alex Smith basically audibling at the line. He sees something he likes. He sends the fullback Bruce Miller out split wide left. At that point, he hikes the ball. We see Vernon Davis cut out and go sort of a corner route into the end zone. Alex Smith connects with him. As we look back on it, what we saw was the Lions brought up John Wendling, who was their backup safety. They brought him up into the box. They had their free safety on the other side away from Vernon Davis. And going into that game, the Lions were down 3 of their 4 starters in the secondary. Alex Smith knew this. He saw a matchup he liked. He loves Vernon Davis. He connects well with him on the field, and they connected there. They took advantage of an inexperienced safety in John Wendling. They got the easy touchdown. Alex Smith spotted it. If you get Alex Smith, you get a guy who is very smart. Obviously, he scored incredibly well in the Wonderlic, but even beyond that, he's a guy that the team gives him a couple of options. He's really able to see what's going on the field, usually. Another example came Week 8 against the Arizona Cardinals, and really an example of kind of his willingness to get that throw off. There have been some question marks. Well, is he willing to make the tough throw, the quick throw, or is he kind of gonna just look for the safe play? And he does sometimes do that, but he can make that quick throw. And in Week 8 against the Cardinals in the first quarter, we saw him just hike the ball, fire it, and quickly into Michael Crabtree against the always tough Patrick Peterson. There's not a lot to show on this play other than the fact that he was willing to make that throw. We've seen that in other instances, including the divisional round against the Saints when he fired in the game-winning touchdown pass to Vernon Davis. But like I said, he's willing to do certain things, and even you'll get frustrated at times with him, but there are times when he will make that big throw. The final positive trait I wanted to show was his athleticism. Obviously, Colin Kaepernick gets a lot of love for what he can do, but Alex Smith can do a lot himself. As we saw against the Saints in the divisional round last year, he, at one point, when things were getting wild in the fourth quarter, the 49ers ran a design quarterback keeper, and this was actually the second time they ran this play. And against the Saints, he ran it in 28 yards for the touchdown. He got some phenomenal blocking, but he is a guy who can wow you with his legs at times. Remember, he did run that spread offense at Utah under Urban Meyer, the similar offense to what Tim Tebow ran under Meyer at Florida. Obviously, there's differences between Alex Smith and Tim Tebow. Alex Smith is much better than Tim Tebow, but really, his athleticism is often forgotten. He's a guy that can move. He can be mobile when needed. On the other hand, there are some negatives with Alex Smith. He will make some tough throws, but one of the most frustrating aspects of his play was when he would take those sacks. As we saw against the Rams in Week 10, we see him kind of looking around for some options, and then he takes a sack. And obviously, we don't know everything that's going on in this play, but it just frequently we would see him taking these sacks where there may have been a guy open. He could have scrambled. He could have picked up a few yards here or there. One of the common complaints about Smith was that he was always looking for that perfect play. That obviously it's not always. There are no absolutes, but a lot of the time you just see him kind of bouncing around, trying to figure it out, and then just taking the sack because he doesn't want to turn the ball over, which is an admirable trait, but it can get frustrating at times. Another play came Week 6 against the Giants this past year in the first quarter. We see Smith drop back. He's looking around. He kind of bounces around the pocket, kind of rolls a little out, and then he tries to fire a pass to Michael Crabtree. It's behind Crabtree. There's chaos. Now, again, without knowing everything that's going on in every play, we can only say so much, but there were a lot of times where it just seemed like Alex Smith was not always comfortable with the options presented to him. And again, this is not an every down type of situation. The problem with it is that it's just a matter of consistency. It takes him time to develop into the offense that he's playing. And when he was first drafted, Urban Meyer was quoted as saying something about how Smith needed to. Not that he was a perfectionist, but it's just he felt he needed to be absolutely 100% comfortable with the offense. Through his first 6 years, he went through 6 offensive coordinators. That did not allow for this comfort to develop. With the 49ers over the last 2 years, we started to see that happen, but now obviously he's heading out. With that in mind, that I still think the Cleveland Browns are a potential destination. They brought in Norv Turner to work with their offense. Alex Smith's best year before Jim Harbaugh, in my mind, came when Norv Turner was his offensive coordinator. It was year 2 of his career, and his first year had been an absolute train wreck, but he figured it out. And he was having a very solid year. Norv Turner ended up leaving before they had a chance to interview quality offensive coordinator candidates, and it was pretty much the dark ages for a few years. So at this point, I think the Arizona Cardinals are probably the favorite. Well, Arizona Cardinals and the Chiefs are probably co-favorites in that regard, but I think the Browns remain a dark horse. The Raiders and the Bills are options as well, but a lot of it will depend on how the 49ers and how Alex Smith can work together to try and figure out an ideal situation. Because I do think they want to do right by him, given what he's been through, given what he has done, as far as being an ideal teammate for Colin Kaepernick, being an ideal mentor for him. I think going to a team where he'll start for a couple years before the team transitions to a new quarterback is the kind of situation we'll see. So We'll see. I think nothing's really probably going to happen until March 12th or 13th. I think if the team cannot get a deal done in that first week of free agency, I think then they will release him. He will not be on the team after April 1st or on April 1st when that salary is guaranteed. 49ers need to clear that space, and I think we're going to see that sometime between March 12th and April 1st. We'll see you then.